Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome, everyone, to the Next Level Conversations that Propel Business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And this is Bob Gibbons. And today we have a really interesting show. Not like we don't have that every week, I know.
We don't.
We always say we have special guests, but every week it's special, so I guess it can't be special every time.
What's special about this one is this guest has already psychoanalyzed us.
He's going to tell us what we are, and he's going to do it on the air. I'm very nervous. So our guest today is Rich Sweeney. He is the founder and CEO of RH Sweeney Associates. They have been in business about 26 years, since 1990. That's a long time. They have about 10 employees. They're based in Hurst, Texas, but they do business all over the country. And they're going to talk about, Rich is going to talk about the predictive index. And Stephen, what's interesting about this is that we had a guest here a few weeks ago by the name of Matt Monero. And Matt, at lunch afterwards, after we recorded the show, we went to lunch. And I asked him what tools he uses to help him decide who he's going to hire. And he said, predictive index. I was like, really? I haven't even told Rich this. And he said, I will pay those people as much money as they want to take from me for the rest of my life. They are so good.
Oh, boy.
I wouldn't even think about hiring somebody without that.
You just lost a friend in Matt by sharing that last part.
So good job there, Rich. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Great to be here, Steve and Bob, and that's good to know about Matt. I'll have to follow up closely on that.
Just don't charge him anything more. He's
going to have to endorse it, right?
We'll keep it straight. Not a problem.
Well, we like to start off every show with wisdom of others, and today we have a quote that you provided from Viktor Frankl. It says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. What does that mean to you?
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with the audience. What's interesting is always thinking in terms of when you look at someone's development as a leader, and 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in the game, how do they evolve? How do they grow? A lot of that has to be becoming cognizant of how others are perceiving. And often in your youth, it's more your intent. You assume that it's captured. So as you become more self-aware and you become more cognizant of the gap or white space, if you will, between individuals, that's where that mindset can really help someone grow and develop as an individual.
Sort of a blind spot or you don't know what you don't know type thing, and just becoming more self-aware of that?
That's exactly right. So if you think in terms of also the whole stimuli response, that actually is a lot of the science behind the predictive index instrument. So if it's a positive stimuli, some will tend to check off some of the wording in the instrument, and if it's a negative, they'll tend to skip it. So it's actually a perfect quote for not only development and always being a big Viktor Frankl fan.
Yeah.
It really captures what I do for a living and how we help people grow.
That's awesome.
Well, so speaking of what you do for a living, tell us about RH Sweeney, what you guys do, what your value proposition is, and just kind of give us the rundown.
Yeah, probably whenever I'm sitting next to someone on a plane, they ask you what you do, my standard response is I'm the garbage man. And they assume that means waste management or what have you. But in reality, a lot of what we do is get rid of a lot of the garbage, a lot of static and debris that goes on between a manager and employee or cross-functionally between departments. We get rid of that garbage, and we do that using science as far as human behavior, blend it with statistics, and we're able to predict how individuals are going to behave under pressure. And so if we can go ahead and analyze the behaviors we need someone to perform predominantly a given position for the majority of the day, why not hire someone that's been practicing that habit of behavior since about age 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? So now I go to work and I'm doing what I like doing, and you're going to have natural increased productivity, profitability, and better end results regardless of the position. So what we do is bring science to the human behavior component and make better people decisions from cradle to grave.
So you make sure the right butts are in the right seats.
Yes, sir.
Which
Absolutely.
is so crucial. So one of the questions I have, just from the science perspective, is like my experience of people is I feel like sometimes people don't even know themselves. So does your test account for that?
You know, it's interesting because when folks get the response or the report back, they're often shocked because the instrument itself that we happen to use, predictive index, requires maybe about 8 minutes complete, very non-invasive, non-threatening. And they're often surprised how rich and robust the content is. And so they'll identify with that data representing who they are, but where the real aha eureka's wake-up call come in is when we train them. So we'll actually facilitate workshops where those managers learn about themselves and they learn about their people, and that's where you see the epiphanies of, oh my gosh, that's the trust I've been committing with Steve. That's how I need to communicate and work with Bob to leverage his behavioral geniuses. So what happens is that self-awareness, be able to intellectualize how I'm perceived regardless of my intent, that's output often of the workshop itself.
Okay.
Interesting. So if I take that predictive index, the 8 minutes you talked about, and I actually took it yesterday for the first time, and you're right, it was the easiest one of these I've ever done. I've taken...
What did you say? It was like Bob is flat out crazy? Is that...
Well, luckily it's not a clinical
psychotic?
Tool, but if it was, there's some indicators, right?
Pathological, something.
I'm grateful for it.
But if I took that again today or tomorrow or 3 years from now, would we find differences?
That's a great question, Bob. What happens is we are creatures of habit, and the design of the instrument is going to capture a very consistent response over a period of time. So we've even done tests over the years. This instrument's been around since 1955, where we show what's called reliability. So when you do resurvey someone, those behaviors are going to duplicate themselves because that's who that person's core work-related behaviors are. So that consistency lends itself to why this is one of the few that's actually legal in the hiring capacity. Most of them, it's one thing for team building, but it's more of a soup de jour result, where this one is going to actually be consistent over a period of time.
So my attitude or my, how I'm feeling one day doesn't really impact how the results are going to happen. If I just had a fight with my wife and I then take it, that's not going to change?
That's a great question. There's actually a couple components we'll measure. We will measure someone's morale. It wouldn't necessarily be captured that you had a tiff with your bride. It would actually be much more a temporal piece of time. The past month, the past 3 months. It could be personal. It could be work-related. But we're going to capture that in a separate part of the instrument. But the core behaviors that I need to make that hiring managerial decision on, those are going to be consistent regardless of your mood, if you will, for the day.
So you said it's EEOC compliant, everything. So how do your clients typically engage and utilize the tool? You talked about team building in a hiring process. Is this something that they use before they even do any interviewing of the person, or?
I would say virtually almost all of our clients use exactly that. It becomes standard operating procedure that regardless of what position, they'll complete a survey. If they've got at least an 8th grade vocabulary, I can render statistically valid data. So I have folks in the plant where I need to improve my safety record. I want to lower my insurance rates. So why not hire folks that bring a natural orientation towards systems and processes? In that same organization, I have folks that are in new business development, where they're out cold calling, knocking on 30, 40 doors a day. I need someone who's opposite. I need a risk taker. I need someone who's more self-confident, willing to take risk on themselves and their ideas. So in the same organization, we need to analyze all those candidates. So it is just part of the interview process. For the larger clients, and we do have 90 of the Global Fortune 500, for the larger clients, they actually put it as part of their applicant tracking system, which is just page 2 and page 3 of the application. For all our other clients, they just send it out as a link on an as-needed basis. So they can actually do some analysis of candidates before they even hit the doorstep or send them a resume.
Wow.
Now, once somebody's been well, let me ask you, so you want to use this tool when hiring somebody, when evaluating somebody to come to work with you, but then you also want to use it later on to train the teams on how to work together.
Absolutely right. And so as Steve mentioned earlier, most instruments on the market cannot surpass the EOC requirements. Those are validity, reliability, adverse impact, job correlation, and cross-cultural. The PI does. We can give it to you in 60-some different languages. So what happens is that's the starting point. But that same data rendered during the interviewing process, we're going to want to use how do we onboard that person, how do we fit them into a team, how do we resolve conflict, communication, motivation, succession plan, development, performance management. So that's where we'll train the managers within the organization how to use this data as a managerial vehicle, not just a hiring instrument.
Is that usually through workshops, or do you do one-on-one coaching, or how do the clients typically engage you?
Yes, we'll do both. Actually, what happens often is that individual gets trained, that leader, and often we'll do a dedicated workshop for just that client where we give the survey to all their incumbent current employees. And what transpires during that training is we're learning about what are their different geniuses, where they have a fit gap to their job, to their manager, to the team. So how do we make that information come alive? So we'll deal with actual issues during the training and give them fodder to be able to go back on Monday and improve productivity in the organization. So what happens then is each of those managers that we train have unlimited access to us. So there's folks I actually have trained literally 25 years ago that'll still call and say, hey, we pull up these 5 candidates, PIs, here's the resumes, let's review them. That same manager calls back a week later and says, I've got to do a corrective action meeting. Can you walk me through how to deliver this message to have the biggest impact? So we'll help them on an ongoing basis. So there's a coaching component, a partnering piece of the puzzle that goes on post-training, how we align with our clients.
So you're not just selling tests, you're basically, there's a service that goes along with it.
Yeah, actually, that's a great observation. They'll have the legal right to administer to virtually every current employee and every candidate with our software, which is, by the way, incredible software. It generates interview guides, coaching guides, what have you. But then we're there to provide that ongoing coaching. So it's really a leadership development partnership is how we work with our clients.
Now, you said this has been around since 1955, so clearly you're not the guy that created it.
I am
unless
not,
you're incredible.
Nor was I ever bright enough even if I was born.
It's Benjamin Button here.
Yeah. I'm about 6 years late on that.
Where did this come from, and how did you end up involved?
There's a gentleman by the name of Arnold Daniels that's since passed away, but he was actually a bombardier in World War II. But before that, he had done a lot of statistical training at Harvard. So as the war evolved, they found out about his statistical background, so he got involved with designing instruments. And then at the end of the war, he thought, why not develop one for business? So, of course, there was no such thing as the EOC in 55, but due to statistical training at Harvard, it was that genius that rendered an instrument that's so non-invasive yet so rich and robust and accurate and reliable. So I had the fortune of getting trained in this program when I was at 3M, and then at a certain level of management, you just went and got trained, and it was transformative for me. I thought I knew everything about sales, but the fact of the matter, this helped me hire better salespeople. It helped me grow as a leader. So then I went and met Arnold, and he licensed me, and I had the fortune of working with him for a number of years before he passed away.
So there are other people like you elsewhere in the country that are also licensed?
That's correct.
People that deliver this?
Yep.
Interesting.
So
and
you just built your business from there?
Yeah, and there's about 50 folks worldwide that are licensed on the program.
And you have your 2 of your brothers work with you.
It's been wonderful. Wish my dad was still alive to see it, but my brother Ed's an amazing trainer. Clients come in, and they're just in awe of how impactful he is on the leaders that he trains. And that's fortunate enough to have my brother Bill, who's an amazing CPA, and he executes all the operations side of the house that I'm not so effective at. So the other thing is my daughter Laura, she's actually joined the team and does an amazing job with customer service, and Natasha does a brilliant job with customer service, and Bob and Tracy, and so we got a great team.
That's great.
We're going to go to a break. When we get back, we're going to hear about some success stories, impacts that your clients have had. Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand. And landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors, and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, Contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
My name is Andrew McJanet-Smith. I'm the partner at Escape Expert Escape Room in Plano, Texas. And after my experience here today with Bob and Stephen, I found out exactly what my customers feel like. I want to escape from this studio as much as they do.
Welcome back to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business. We're here with our guest, Rich Sweeney of RH Sweeney and Company. And you can learn more about his company at trustthedots.com.
Well, before we get into how crazy Bob and I are, or maybe just
I think our listeners know that by now.
I would like to hear just a couple of impacts. Like obviously Bob shared that was a high praise, but maybe some tangible impacts you've seen with where companies were struggling. It made a real difference for them.
That's great. That's probably a favorite part of what we do is we'll often get brought in for the hiring component of the instrument, probably about 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. Yet once we train the leaders, again, as we mentioned earlier, the aha of, wow, there's a lot of managerial applications as well that can help drive the culture, the direction they want to go. I can think of, without naming organizations' names, but one jumps to mind. Years ago, having trained the CEO and the executive team, then they had us train the next level managers and regionals, and it really was embraced and became part of their culture. And this organization, actually based here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they built an incredible organization, so successful that a major corporation, Fortune, came in and bought them out.
Oh, wow.
But what was interesting is we had benchmarked what are the behaviors they need to hire for their salespeople, and we benchmarked the behaviors they need to hire for their customer service. And they really interviewed a lot of folks to find what they need, because it's simple math. Why hire someone and try and change them or fix them? Why not hire someone and match them what you need them to do 60% of the day? Yeah, it's already in the program. So this organization came in after the buyout, and they decided they were going to hire very different folks. I continue to work with them in spite of my encouraging them to recognize that you probably want to stay with this pattern, sets of patterns. They changed, and it did impact the organization significantly. So that was one where, from a hiring perspective, once they realigned and started hiring what the original the original company had hired, the results started going in the right direction again. There's another example last week. I have a client where they were looking at a CFO for a bank. And one CFO is getting retired, so he completed one of our job analysis tools, what he ideally wanted. And then the CEO completed what that individual thought we needed for a CFO. We reviewed those results. We agreed on the blend, and that was what we should be targeting for as a CFO. And they had two candidates who were technically extremely competent. And so you can only imagine when dealing with accounting and that type of thing, where the common language is there and the jargon. Yet in this case, there was one individual's behavior that was clearly going to be a better fit to what they need. And so that was some data that wasn't necessarily easily captured in the interview, but was able to be captured through the analysis of the instrument, and thus the candidate they went with. So that would be two of the interviewing applications.
When somebody uses your tool, the predictive index, do they then not need to use other things like strength finders or the Berkman profile or the Colby, or there's a million out there, it seems?
There's a bucket of instruments out there, some again more legal than others for the hiring, and some actually for different applications and so forth. What we tend to find is a lot of times is when folks start using PI, they maybe are using some instruments in conjunction, but this trust and belief in the PI results and how easy it is to use and apply, often they'll start leaning that direction. And we also provide a cognitive instrument to measure the speed at which someone learns. So sometimes it's really helpful to have the behavioral component, but then to also administer the what we call learning indicator to measure the cognitive. So, Bob's getting a 30 on it, and Steve's getting a 31 on it, and Rich gets a 17 on the learning indicator. Doesn't mean Rich is dumb as a bag of rocks, which he might be, but we're not necessarily measuring that. But we are measuring is that if you're going to bring me on board, you might want to shift gears in addressing my learning style, which would be a different speed than Steve or Bob's. And so when you can take the behavioral component, which is, think about it almost as a fixed asset, what you've had since about age 12, and the cognitive, again, another fixed asset. Well, we're not measuring what someone's skills they've acquired or what's on their resume, for instance. Those are things we'll have to still interview for. So you're going to want to use those data points intelligently with other metrics that you capture. But the shorter answer would be a lot of times that PI becomes a critical component, and some clients select to also use the cognitive instrument, the learning indicator with it.
I think the cognitive would be really important for organizations that recruit outside their industry, like where there's a bigger learning gap, right?
Absolutely. And again, you might use it in an organization, but maybe not for all positions. But you're going to want to use it for everyone that applies for a given position.
Right.
So what do you find to be one of the most challenging things about running your own business?
It's really, I've found over the years, is letting go and surrounding yourself, the old adage of hiring people that are better than you, practice what you preach. And I've been very fortunate in doing that. So I hire folks that are better than me, and then letting go and trusting them that their style of training might be different, their style of selling might be different.
All right, let me challenge you there for a second. You use the word better, and given the language used among indexes and this industry, I'm always told, well, it's not that one is better than the other. It's just differences and focusing on the strengths that one person has over the other. So you say hiring somebody better than you, but you're saying that in a particular position, right?
Well, if you think in terms of when I was a one-man shop 25 years ago, I didn't have the money to hire folks. So if I need to send an invoice out, it needed to come from me. If I need to do an analysis of a team of PIs and prepare for a meeting, I had to do it. So it doesn't mean I can't do it. I think people are amazingly adaptable. I got 4 kids to feed and clothe. The question is, where do I want my energy allocated?
Great motivator.
So if I've got, for instance, Bill, who's a phenomenal CPA accountant, and he's got a behavior that system process makes his eyes light up. Mine, I'm in pain while looking at an Excel spreadsheet. So why not hire someone and match them to the needs of that job?
Okay, so they're better than you at that function, but not overall.
Strongly advised.
So as you've grown, I mean, obviously you're cooking. What's been the toughest role to replace?
The sales piece. Finding folks that are as passionate about sales. I still have a love for it. We do a lot of sales training as well. We'll come in and we'll measure with a different instrument what a sales team knows or doesn't know about the 5 key areas of any sales process: opening, investigate, present, confirming, handling objections, etc. So with those metrics, I now know with, for instance, your PI, Steve, indicates that you would be brilliant at new business development. You're quick on your feet, you're adaptable, you're competitive, you quickly engage with people, you have a positive impact, and very persuasive style of communication. So I've got the right potential. But let's say you're now 20-some years of age straight out of college. Mm-hmm. So you may never have been formally trained in sales. So I could give you the SSAT, Sales Skills Assessment Tool, measure what you know or don't know about the sales process. I now use those data points as a coaching tool with Steve. Now, in the same sense, I've got the learning indicator. What's the speed at which you learn? I can then shift and adapt. In your case, I'm going to have to talk faster and smarter because you're brighter than me. So what we want to do is go ahead and recognize we're going to use all those data points to get that person up and running. So over the years, finding someone that would bring your type of behavior, that really has a passion for going out, developing new business, knocking on doors, and still having appreciation, understand the technical part of what we do, and be able to articulate that message.
So if Steven's really good at going out and getting new business, as you just stated, what are the areas that he really needs to make sure that he gets an expert to do in his company that he's not going to be as interested in?
That would be very similar to myself. You'll need someone like my brother Bill, who actually is going to get those invoices out and cross the T's and dot the I's.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, Corey.
Doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's certainly not the part of your job you do first thing with enjoyment.
Interesting. All right, so you ready to analyze me?
It's scary. Are you sure you want to go there? No,
it's about to get real.
Jan, mute the button right now.
Actually, it's kind of fun. Your pattern is what we'd call the chameleon effect. In other words, what you have, Bob, is a gift where you can model the behavior you're with. Even though you prefer, if in managing you, communicating with you, coaching you, you prefer more of a direct, frank, factual engagement. You'd also probably prefer I gave you that information before we meet, right? So I might want to do that in how I work with you and communicate with you. But what you can do is when you're with someone, for instance, who's more my style, cut to the quick, you instinctively can model that. When you're with someone who's much more like Steve, relationship, people, externally focused, glass half full individual, without having to think about it, you can model that as well. So when we go in and train sales teams, we teach them that skill set. Buyers tend to buy from people they like, and they tend to like themselves. How do you model that type of decision maker? So you'd be sitting in my sales class going, why are people taking notes on this? Because you've been doing it your whole life. So it gives that a chameleon effect of being able to adapt without having to spend a lot of mental energy.
So does that mean that I'm not authentic in that?
I mean, all my interactions with you are very sincere, so I don't think that's the case. And actually, your pattern, and what you do is like meeting people one-on-one based on your core behavior, so that way you can assess someone's sincerity. It's not easy to earn your trust. You're going to wait for someone's actions more than their words, and I'm going to do that based on give me that information ahead of time. But once I've earned that trust, I'm allowed in that inner circle.
So what are the areas that I need to be making sure that I'm hiring other people to do?
That's a great one. It's interesting. If you do look at the polarity with you and Steve, he'd be someone to bring that external, fast engagement, drive it, and take more risk. You're going to be a little more guarded. You're going to want to gather 90% of the data before you pull a trigger. So you might want someone who's more risk taker, where someone like Steve would be. He's going to make a decision on 20% data. Let's ask for forgiveness first, permission. Let's just go do it. So he's going to be an aggressive driver. And then you're going to watch the ship and make sure that we keep it balanced and we execute.
So I'm the cautious one of the two of us?
Comparatively. Does that surprise you?
It does, actually.
I like process because process creates freedom. And so Bob still gets that confused with thinking that I want to control everything.
Well, I always felt like I was more seat of the pants, especially when it comes to the show. Steven's much more the preparer.
Yeah.
Coming in, he will have read everything, made lots of notes, and I will have not even read the interview form that we give our guests in advance. Right. Like, I haven't even read yours.
Not a
for
problem.
For the show.
Not
and we've
a
got
problem.
43 seconds left.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, Rich, thanks so much for being on the show today. We really have enjoyed it. I mean, there's so much more to learn. Obviously, I need to spend a lot of time on this in the future. And I also need to give this to the people in my company as well, so we can learn how to work together better.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. If you guys heard something today that intrigued you, where you want to learn more or just operate your business at a higher level, you can find Rich at trustthedots.com, and definitely help spread the word. Facebook, LinkedIn, all the other social medias.
And explore the archives of the Next Level Show at nextlevelshow.com, where we interviewed Terry Pham of Fat Straws. And he says you can always hire and train someone's skills, but you can't teach integrity. And we'll see you next week with another great guest.
Have a great one.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks, Steve.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.